What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? D-backs drop game one to the New York Mets. Is Brandon Pfaadt starting to hit a wall? And why Francisco Lindor is clearly not the MVP.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I'm the host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, please follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account, Millard.Thomas23 for the personal on Insta, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. And thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners. Sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now, in today's podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs dropping game one to the New York Mets. Are we going to see Christian Walker and Jordan Montgomery returning to the D-backs in 2025? Why Francisco Lindor is not the MVP? So let's jump into the podcast. All right, let's talk about that game one loss to the New York Mets, because the D-backs have been rolling recently, 6-game winning streak, back-to-back series sweeps, and they ran into a New York Mets team who we were talking about in the podcast just seems to have played the D-backs well the last few years. For whatever it is, throw out the names, throw out the matchups, it just feels like the Mets play the D-backs well for whatever reason that is, and the Mets are also the more desperate team right now as they are clinging on to their hopes in the wild card race. Meanwhile, the D-backs at least have a wild card spot basically locked up. It's not guaranteed, but their chances of making the postseason is like 98%. Like, we're feeling very good about the D-backs postseason chances. The Mets more on the precipice, right? So they really need this series. And game one against the New York Mets gave me the vibes like game one against the Philadelphia Phillies, where East Coast team coming to the West Coast. You have a big game one, nice performance from your starting pitcher, nice performance from your offense. You feel like you're going to take it to the D-backs in the series. I don't think that's going to happen. Bad game one by the D-backs where Brandon Pfaadt, he looks like he's starting to hit a wall. He has not been as effective recently. You look at his splits in the second half of the season, Brandon Pfaadt just hasn't been as effective. 4.42 ERA in the second half. And entering tonight's start, he had a 4.94 ERA in the month of August. And so this has not been a clean Brandon Pfaadt recently. Gave up a ton of hits tonight. Still had the strikeouts as well, but overall the command was not there. Only 59 of his 98 pitches went for strikes. It just felt like he was not able to locate consistently enough, and the hitters of the New York Mets really took advantage. A lot of loud and hard contact, and they just weren't getting fooled despite the 6 strikeouts from Brandon Pfaadt. They just weren't getting fooled tonight. And you look at this whole team for the D-backs tonight. Pfaadt wasn't good. The offense didn't do enough. But even with all that being said, it feels like the Philadelphia Phillies series where the East Coast team comes out in game one. They look really good. Pitching, offense, all of it looks dominant. But I think the D-backs are going to come back in this series and win the next 2 games against the New York Mets. I know Brandon Pfaadt wasn't good. That is something that we do have to monitor looking forward. We want to see a better Brandon Pfaadt moving forward. We have so much faith in him, especially in a big postseason setting. I think Pfaadt's going to dominate, but he has not been as good recently, and it is something to monitor. The offense in this game started to come alive a little bit later. Once we started to get to Mania in that seventh inning, but Mania was really locked in tonight. 11 strikeouts, pitch into the seventh, and really the D-backs had no answer for him. They had to wait until they got to the bullpen or wait until Mania started pitching in that seventh inning. That's really the only time the D-backs were able to put anything together offensively. I also don't think this was the best defensive game by the D-backs. Geraldo Perdomo just looked like there's a couple of routine plays that he just wasn't able to make over there at shortstop. I just thought he could have been a little bit better overall. I just thought this was not a clean game by the D-backs. The pitching wasn't the best. Brendan Pfaadt struggled to throw strikes. The offense wasn't getting the big hits. 0 for 4 at runners scoring position. We also saw Jordan Montgomery come out the pen, and he wasn't the best out the pen either. All 6 earned runs went to Brendan Pfaadt. Jordan Montgomery gave up a couple of did he give up, or the 2 unearned runs went to Brendan Pfaadt with 6 earned runs, but a couple of those unearned runs definitely looked like they were on Jordan Montgomery, who was not good coming out the pen. Despite the box score saying 4.1 innings pitch of no earned runs, Jordan Montgomery was not good. He did not help out Brendan Pfaadt at all when he came out the pen, and he just exacerbated the lead for the New York Mets. We need to have a conversation about Monty moving forward, about what are the next steps in the process if Monty does not continue to play well. Is it time to start thinking about DFAing Monty? I don't know. There was a little chant in the crowd tonight with the Monty struggles. I did hear a DFA chant in the crowd tonight. So that is something to monitor with the D-backs going forward. But if you want to talk about something positive from tonight's game, Corbin Carroll once again displaying some power, his 15th home run of the season. That happened in the 7th inning, along with a Lourdes Gurriel, who also hit a home run in the 7th inning. Those are the 2 guys that we've been seeing Corbin Carroll heat up the last few weeks, right? Since like July 1st, Corbin Carroll's slugging percentage is like 600. He's got like 13 home runs or something since July 1st. And so the power has been really there for him. He's starting to hit the ball a lot better. Like, we're finally starting to see Corbin Carroll turn around his season offensively. And then Lourdes Gurriel, he's starting to pick it up a little bit as well. We've been needing to see the power from him, and he displayed it tonight. As we were saying on our podcast, I think yesterday, how the D-backs already matched their they had 420 home run guys last season. They already matched that total this year. And last year, that included Gurriel and Corbin Carroll. Gurriel now at 16 home runs, Corbin Carroll at 15. So there's a chance D-backs could have 620 home run hitters by the end of the year. D-backs lose game 1, but we got Erod. Let me just double check. I believe Erod is on the mound in game number 2. Yeah, so we got Erod on the mound against Severino. I have a lot of confidence that the D-backs are going to win the next 2 games in the series. I know the Mets were the more desperate team in game number 1, but just like the Philly series, let the Mets feel good after game 1. Let them have a good night, rest asleep, and then the next 2 games, punch them in the mouth and win this series and basically rip the hearts out of Mets fans and knock them out this wild card race. That would make me happy. The Mets have kind of had the D-backs number the last couple years. So let's go take it to the Mets the next 2 games and end their hopes of making it to the playoffs. Now I want to discuss if Christian Walker and Jordan Montgomery are going to be returning to the D-backs in 2025 in segment number 2. But hey, if you're looking for any parts, then I suggest eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And also, If you guys love doing daily fantasy sports, then the place you got to go is, of course, Prize Picks because it's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss Christian Walker and Jordan Montgomery because Kylie McDaniels of ESPN did a little article just detailing some of the potential contracts for free agents that are going to hit the market this offseason. Talked about Christian Walker, talked about Jordan Montgomery, their value. And so I want to talk about their value and their potential to coming back to the D backs in 2025 because I haven't exactly looked at the 2025 MLB free agent market, but I assume Christian Walker is going to be one of the best players on the market next season and probably the best first baseman on the market. It looks like Paul Goldschmidt potentially could be on the market as well, but Christian Walker definitely at this point of his career is a better first baseman than a Paul Goldschmidt, which might be crazy to think about when you think about where the D-backs are coming from. With Paul Goldschmidt being the face of the franchise, the whole fiasco trading him, finding this guy Christian Walker and him just stepping up and being as good as as good as Paul Goldschmidt the last couple of years, and now he's ascended past him. Really incredible stuff by Christian Walker. And now we have to ask what his value is and if he's returning to the D-backs in 2025. Pete Alonso, potentially a free agent this upcoming offseason, but I think we all know Christian Walker's better than Pete Alonso. I mean, statistically, when Walker was playing, he was better than Pete Alonso. But that could be a little bit of a concern because from the eye test, I think we say Christian Walker is better than Alonso. The stats say that. I don't think the national narrative is Walker is better than Alonso, but that could be for the best when talking about negotiations for Christian Walker this offseason because if we all believe he's the best first baseman hitting the market, that could make the price tag pretty expensive for Christian Walker. And right now, Kylie McDaniel believes it's going to be between 40 and 80 million dollars for Christian Walker. Doesn't have the years written down here, so I don't know what that's projected at. But I do have some first baseman salaries right now on Spotrac pulled up. And if I have to compare what a new Christian Walker deal could or should look like versus the current numbers, I mean, when you're talking about a 20 million a year first baseman, that's Freddie, Goldie, Harper, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, Anthony Rizzo. Those are all guys making 20 million. Vladdy is at 19, Reese Hoskins is at 17, Josh Bell's at 16.5. I think we all can definitively say Christian Walker is better than Josh Bell, Reese Hoskins, Anthony Rizzo. But no one would probably put Christian Walker on the Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, Vlad Guerrero Jr. tier. Despite the numbers being there, I don't think anyone would put him there as a player. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't think he has that kind of, clout to him, I guess. And so because of that, would you make the argument that despite him actually having that value as a player, if he's not viewed like that from a narrative perspective, then he should probably get a cheaper deal than some of those guys. If Harper's making 25 and Olson's at 21, then Christian Walker should probably be right above Reese Hoskins, who's at 17. Vlad Guerrero's at 19.9. Christian Walker should probably be at 18 million a year then. And I'm probably giving him like a 3 or 4 year contract. Christian Walker is how old? Let me just pull up his age real quick. Christian Walker's 33 years old, so a 3-year deal that'll take him until like his age 36 season. I think that would be perfect for him. I think he ages well. Power bat with the elite defensive glove. I would most certainly sign up. 3 years of 18 million annually for Christian Walker. I think that would be a fantastic deal. The D-backs could get that done. Perfect move to start the offseason. Snub from the All-Star game this year, but that could actually help his value for the D-backs in contract negotiations. So definitely bring him back. 3-year deal, around 18 million a year. I think that's perfect for a guy that's like 30 plus home runs, 100 ribbies, best defense in the sport the last 3 seasons. Definitely worth the money. And then Jordan Montgomery is the other interesting guy. This article still talking like Jordan Montgomery is going to get a big deal this offseason. That's not going to happen. If the D-backs do the option, then yes, he could make over $20 million next year. But I don't think the D-backs at this point want to do that option. They've already put him in the bullpen. And I think for Jordan Montgomery, if the D-backs do want to bring him back next year, you decline the option and then you try to re-sign him at an even lower price tag. Because I think wherever Jordan Montgomery goes in this offseason, it has to be a cheaper contract than what he signed for this past offseason with the D-backs. No way is someone going to go out there and say, let me give him another 20 million annual contract with the way he's pitched this year being quite literally the worst starting pitcher in baseball this season. There's no way someone wants to go out there and commit real money to him. Even a guy like Lucas Giolito, he struggled the last 2 years with the White Sox. He still got like a pretty decent deal with the Boston Red Sox. So it is possible there could be a team out there that's like, yes, last year, 2024, were just a fluke for Monty. Look at the previous 3 years. Let's bring him in the building. 2 years, $40 million. Maybe there is a team desperate enough that would do that because the Red Sox were desperate enough to give Giolito like real money this past offseason. But with how Monty has looked this year, I would like to assume someone just does like a 10-year, not a 10-year, a 10 million a year deal, one season, prove a deal where you say, Monty, come in the building and show to me that you're still one of the best pitchers in baseball. You can still be a frontline starter in the sport because he had just not shown that at all this season. And right now, I think all D-back fans are on the side of not bringing back Monty next year. You have Gallen, you have Kelly, you have Erod locked up, you have Pfaadt. That's already 4 guys for a postseason rotation. And with the way Ryan Nelson's pitching, if he continues to look like this, no way the D-backs should bring back Monty next season, especially at a price tag north of 20 million. Not worth the deal. I'm okay bringing back Monty, but decline the option and then do like a 1-year, $6 million prove it deal. If you do that, I'm fine bringing Monty back. As it currently stands, I think we're saying give Nelly that number 5 spot for next season and let's move on from Jordan Montgomery this offseason. Now, we'll talk about why Francisco Lindor is clearly not the MVP in segment number 3. And if you're trying to stay hydrated in this Arizona summer heat, then I suggest Liquid IV because when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non GMO, vegan, gluten free, dairy free, and soy free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop better hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. And also, if you're looking to buy tickets to an upcoming D-backs game, then I suggest Game Time because Game Time is the best place for last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have this all-in pricing feature that shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You could get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They even have the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time, use the app because it is the best place for last minute tickets. All right. Let's get back to the Lockdown Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss why Francisco Lindor is not the MVP. Obviously, this is obvious to a lot of people because it looks like Otani is running away with the award, whether that should be accurate or not. FanDuel has him running away with the award at minus 2,300. But at second place right now, running away with second is Francisco Lindor at plus 500. Ozuna is third at plus 2,300. De La Cruz plus 8,000. And then Ketel Marte plus 9,000. And I just want to know, why has Francisco Lindor moved up so much in the MVP race? Why do people think he's deserving to be this high? I know what his WAR is, but I was looking at some stats. I was playing this little game with my friends, watching the D-backs game tonight. Every time Lindor came up to a bat and all the Mets fans were cheering, MVP, MVP. We were like, how can he be the MVP when statistically he's not even better than some guys on the D-backs? And so let's talk about it because I'm hearing Lindor MVP across the board. He's not better than Ketel Marte. Despite Ketel Marte dropping to fifth in odds, he still has better numbers across the board than Francisco Lindor. Crushes him in average, crushes him in OBP, crushes him in slugging, crushes him in home runs, crushes him in RBIs. And it's like every offensive metric, WRC plus, like no matter what you want to look at, the numbers tell you Ketel Marte just having a way better season offensively than what uh Francisco Lindor is having. And Marte has played like 15 less games than Lindor. He still has a higher WAR than him. Like all the metrics tell you he's more valuable. The traditional peripheral stats tell you he's more valuable. Like, so I don't know how Lindor has moved all the way up to second when he's not even more valuable than a guy who hasn't played in 3 weeks. So that's number one. Number two, I thought this was just kind of funny, just funny stats. You're saying Lindor's the MVP. He doesn't even have more RBIs than Eugenio Suarez. Eugenio Suarez, the first 88 games of the season, was arguably the worst offensive player in the sport. You look at WRC plus. If he was not one, he was locked into bottom three WRC plus, like the first 88, 90, 85 games, like whatever the exact metric was. He was one of the worst offensive players in the sport. And now he's still, after a 6-7 week hot stretch, he has more RBIs than the guy who's considered second in MVP voting. Like Eugenio Suarez has been hot for a month and a half, and he's better than Lindor in terms of driving guys home. I thought that was kind of interesting for the Mets MVP. I know people don't care about average anymore. I still think it's a fun stat. I still think it's a stat that tells you something, how good of a hitter someone is. And Lourdes Gurriel, higher batting average than Francisco Lindor. Lindor currently, oh my God, did I close my tab for today's game? Yes, I did. But Gurriel 275 average, Lindor at 270 average. Like, uh, Lindor is going to finish the year with more hits than Gurriel because he's going to have more at bats than Gurriel. But in 119 games versus Francisco Lindor's 131 games, like it's not that big of a difference in terms of sample size. And the fact that Gurriel has a slightly higher average, I mean, Lindor doesn't need to bat 330, but if you're going to say this guy's deserving of the MVP higher than Ketel Marte, like he entered today's game with a 269 average, like it went up to 270. That's the MVP? No. How about the fact that his OPS is only like 10 points higher than Jake McCarthy? Jake McCarthy entered the season as the fourth outfielder for the D-backs. He's been a guy that only got opportunity against left-handed batting, and he's played so well this season. He's gone hot the last couple months. just like Francisco Lindor has. And that's part of the reason why he can't be MVP. You can't just have a good few week stretch and then all of a sudden be second MVP voting. Because then why is Jake McCarthy not second in MVP voting? I know he doesn't have the power and the steals of a Francisco Lindor, but his average crushes Lindor, and his OPS is right there within spitting distance of Lindor as well. And he's got all the big clutch hits the last couple months. So when I'm just looking at the Lindor MVP case, his OPS is not much better than McCarthy, less a lower average than Gurriel, less RBIs than Eugenio, worse stats across the board than Ketel Marte. Eugenio Suarez is a strikeout machine, and he still has the same walk rate as Francisco Lindor, which is crazy. And can we also just talk about like the Marcell Ozuna case? Like, how can we put Lindor above Ozuna, above Marcell Ozuna? You could tell me defense, sure, I'll give you that. He's a DH, but Ozuna is also in the mix to potentially win the triple crown. He's got 96 RBIs entering today's game, at least, with almost 40 home runs, led the league in average, almost 1,000 OPS. Like, he could potentially surpass Otani in a lot of stats, or at least be right there neck and neck. And we're going to say, yeah, it just clearly Lindor over Marcell Ozuna. I think Ozuna has kind of gotten overlooked a little bit in the MVP voting. And maybe it's because he doesn't play defense, but neither does Shohei Otani. I know Otani leads the NL in WAR, but maybe the award race should be a little bit closer when you look at the stats than what it currently is. So Francisco Lindor, he's moved up to second in the FanDuel MVP voting. I think we can all agree that's just a little bit crazy. Does he deserve to be a candidate? Does he deserve to get some votes? Yes, but does he deserve more votes than a guy that potentially win the Triple Crown in Ozuna? No. Does he deserve more votes than a guy who is statistically just better than him across the board? No. If you want to say him versus Ella De La Cruz, fine, you can give it to Lindor, but there's no way Lindor should even be a finalist at the end of the season. When I'm looking at the stats for the other players in Major League Baseball, I think it would be a little bit crazy if Lindor was even a finalist for the award. So that is my 2 cents. Lindor, great player, but not an MVP finalist right now. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news, coverage, and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.